compare it with the development of our mental categories to interpret the world than our ways of thinking. And this process has been considerably accelerated during the last 100 years through the rise of party bureaucracies. It can be shown that no other human ability has suffered to such an extent by the progress of the modern age. The relentless process of more and more, bigger and bigger, all of which were supposed to serve the political needs of modern mass societies in order to make representative government possible where direct democracy would not do. We do not know where these developments will lead us, but we can see how cracks in the power structure of all but the small countries are opening and widening. That every decrease of power is an open invitation to violence. I assure you, for your own well-being, it's very unpleasant to live under a dictatorship or a tyranny or a one-party dictatorship, but it is paradise compared to living under a totalitarian dictatorship.
My name is Roger Berkowitz. It's a pleasure to be here with you all again today. This is a wonderful situation where we're going to establish and dedicate this new Hannah Arendt Network. And I think it's wonderful that we have this idea of doing it formally with the blessing of the government here. Starting something new is something Hannah Arendt thought a lot about, right? The idea of natality, of beginning something new, grounding something new. For those of us who started things, started a center, started a network, it's a very Arendtian, very democratic. The idea that we have the right to ground something new is actually surprising. Not everyone takes that right upon themselves. And I think we should celebrate that. And I'm glad Christoph wants to do that. I just think back that I met Christoph when a delegation from the Flemish government wrote me and said, we want to come visit you at Bard College in upstate New York. And I thought, really? And they did. And the minister president, Bart Zommers, and Christoph and a few other people made the long trip from Flanders to upstate New York. And we had a nice lunch in an Italian restaurant and visited the Arendt grave and the Arendt Center. And this started a long, now a 5, 6, 7-year relationship between the Arendt Institute in Mechelen and the Arendt Center in New York that now has blossomed into our work together on the Hannah Arendt Network. A network that is just beginning, and I think very few of us know where it will go. And so you all being here is actually super important to us because you're helping us to figure out where it goes. If you have ideas, we'd love to hear from you. I know that in the coming years, we're hoping to figure out where we're going, and hopefully it will build something meaningful that will have an impact on the world in the way that we've talked about today or others that we don't yet know. So I'd like to introduce or bring up Christoph Busch, who will be here to introduce our keynote speaker this evening. Thank you all very much.
Dear friends, Thank you very much. It was, for me, a very inspiring day with a lot of insights, with a lot of plurality, but also with a lot of emotion to tackle the challenges that lie beneath us. For us, it's very important not only to network, it's an Arendtian thing to do, as Roger has said, but also to see how we can be institutionally embedded in the work and to see how we can relate with the governments. And because we need institutions capable of protecting and enlarging that large shared world, it's my great honor to invite the keynote speaker for this inaugural segment of our conference, Minister Annelies Verlinde. Currently serves as Belgium's Minister of Justice, and in her previous portfolio was Minister of Interior, Institutional Reforms and Democratic Renewal. That rare combination, guardianship of the rule of law and stewardship of democratic innovation, makes her uniquely suited to address the challenges that confront us. Madam Minister, we are grateful for your presence. We look forward to your reflections on how legal justice and democratic renewal can reinforce one and another in an age of polarization, in an age of democratical challenges. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Can all hear me like this? Then the mic is fine. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. Just a couple of weeks ago, we commemorated 80 years since the end of the Second World War, 80 years of peace on a continent once torn apart by conflict, 80 years of rebuilding trust, institutions, and above all, the shared belief that freedom, fundamental rights, the rule of law, and justice are worth protecting. The rule of law did not begin in 1945, but it had to be reclaimed. In the aftermath of war and atrocity, it was reaffirmed as a foundation of a just and democratic society, rebuilt by visionaries, defended by generations. The foundations of our legal and democratic systems were not laid nor protected merely with treaties or constitutions, but with human commitment, with the courage to believe in fairness over force, in dialogue over domination, and in accountability over arbitrariness. And it's no coincidence that the Hannah Arendt Network, named after one of the most influential political thinkers of the 20th century, is launched here in Brussels in the Egmont Palace, a house of diplomacy, cooperation, and European ambition for a fair and just society. We do live in times of disruption. The international order that once seemed unshakable now feels unstable. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has not only brought war back to our continent against all beliefs that Europe would forever be liberated from warfare, and it has reminded us how fragile peace, but also the rule of law, truly are. The resurgence of authoritarian and anti democratic regimes, the weaponization of energy, critical infrastructure, and information, and the growing strain on multilateral and respectful cooperation have changed the atmosphere in which our democracies operate. Together with the rise of social media and obscure algorithms, the rules of the game seem to have them changed dramatically. And as such, the greatest threat may not come from abroad. It may rise within our own systems. In recent years, we have witnessed a worrying trend, the normalization of distrust, the rise of conspiracy as a substitute for truth, the erosion of respect for democratic institutions, the replacement of facts by parallel truths. Let us not underestimate what this means when courts are portrayed as political actors, when scientific and social facts are cast aside, when impartial journalists are labeled enemies, when politicians undermine their own government institution, The damage is deep and the impact is fundamental and dangerous. It is in this context that we must ask ourselves who defends the rule of law when the law is under rhetorical, political, or structural attack. The rule of law is not just a democratic principle, it's a fundamental societal choice, a public ethic, an undeniable element in our society. It is what allows difference to coexist without violence, what turns principles into practice and rights into realities, what gives minorities the respect and protection they are entitled to. And yet, we too often take it for granted, as though it was a natural condition rather than a continuous achievement. If we do not defend and protect it, then who will? Today, many people feel increasingly disconnected from politics and democratic institutions. What they miss is not just representation, but a shared story, a sense of belonging, a narrative that ties them to one another, to their communities, and to democracy itself. This growing distance is not inevitable, but it does call for responsibility. For those of us in public office, it's not enough to preserve democratic procedures. We must actively renew and advocate for democracy. Bring it closer to the lived realities, the hopes, and the worries and frustrations of the people we serve. That means, amongst other things, making democracy more accessible, more transparent, and more responsive. But also, and just as importantly, it means rethinking how we do politics, how we speak about one another, how we treat our institutions with respect for the separation of powers, and how we embody the very values we ask others to believe in. Because in the end, the rule of law cannot be sustained by institutions alone. It must be upheld by people, by citizens who choose to defend it, trust it, and see themselves in it, with an unparalleled discipline to not make any compromises on the basics of the rule of law. The role of the government is not to win that battle alone, but to convince every citizen to join it. Political leadership has an essential role to play in renewing democracy, but politics cannot do it alone. We need citizens, thinkers, educators, activists. We need every part of society to take responsibility for the future of our democratic culture. We are in need of ambassadors to walk this path with us. And that is why initiatives like the Hannah Arendt Network are so valuable. They represent a form of intellectual resilience, a commitment to critical thinking, civic courage, and political responsibility. This network brings together four leading institutes, each rooted in Arendt's legacy, each working to safeguard the democratic fabric of our societies. In Mechelen, Belgium, the Hannah Arendt Institute, under the leadership of Christophe Busch, has shown how research, education, and local engagement can foster democratic vigilance. Christophe and his team have also been one of the driving forces behind the creation of this network, and I want to thank him warmly for his vision in general, particularly his tireless efforts in turning a shared ambition into a living international platform. This new network builds on that foundation. It creates a space for reflection and resistance, not against institutions, but in defense of the values that give institutions their meaning. And we need that space because in times of polarization, nuance becomes rare. In times of populism, complexity is dismissed. And in times of democratic fatigue, the temptation to look away and resort to other autocratic styles of power becomes dangerously strong. This network is a counterweight to that temptation. It says, we will not look away. We will study, speak, and stand. Hannah Arendt warned us that the collapse of freedom often begins with the collapse of meaning. When facts are ignored, when language is distorted, when history is denied, the space for democracy begins to erode. In such moments, research becomes resistance. It helps us understand what is happening, expose what is at risk, and defend what must be protected. That is why networks like this are so important. They bring critical thinking into public life. They connect knowledge with civic responsibility, and they help us protect the values that make democracy possible. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no vaccine against democratic backsliding, no firewall that protects the rule of law without effort. But there is confident hope, and there is work to do. Let this network be part of that work. Let it challenge, inform, and connect. Let it be a space where truth is pursued without cynicism, where disagreement is welcomed without hostility, where law is studied not as a static system, but as a living principle. And let each of us in our roles as ministers, as scholars, as citizens, be ambassadors of the rule of law. Not because we are nostalgic for the past, but because we believe in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Minister. The Hannah Arendt Institute in Belgium was partly made to realize, thanks to funding by the Flemish government also. We have a very large program set up already for 4 years in supporting local administrations by helping them how to tackle polarization, disinformation, and hate speech, a program that lies to the core of the work of the Hannah Arendt Institute. We have a video message of Minister President Matthias Diependale, but I just forgot the pointer.
Hello, dear friends and colleagues. I'm very sorry that I can't attend the event today, but it's an honor for me to give you a small introductory video. If you ask me, there are actually 3 pillars that kept society peaceful and prosperous for the last 200 to 250 years since the Enlightenment. And that's first of all the fact that we have economic liberalism with free trade. The second is the rule of law, is also very important. And the third one is, of course, democracy. And that's the one that you're discussing today. I think it's very important to understand, and especially to teach on young people, that democracy might have its downfalls, might have its negative elements in it, but it is the least bad system to govern our society and to keep it prosperous and peaceful. So I think that we all should learn what Hannah Arendt taught us, how important it is to live a vita activa, to get involved. And I hope that this is a very fruitful, very educational, and an interesting event for all of you. Very sorry not to be there. Maybe in the future I will be able to attend and would love to meet all of you then. Bye.
Dear friends, all day long we have inhabited what Hannah Arendt called a space of appearance. That luminous arena where distinct yet equal actors meet and where politics in its noblest sense begins. In every keynote, debate, and corridor conversation, we have proven her point that plurality is not merely a prerequisite of public life, but its living fabric. Yet, Arendt also reminds us that every appearance is above all a beginning, like Roger has stated. What matters now is what we do once the lights dim. The manifesto we are about to sign pledges us to strengthen democratic resilience and renewal by celebrating the diversity of voices, perspectives, and experiences that make a liberal democracy thrive. Let us therefore translate today's energy into joint projects that pair scholarship with practice, equip citizens and professionals alike, and amplify local insights into a wave of momentum across Europe and beyond. And remember, this is only the beginning. 1 year from now, we will gather again for a follow-up conference, larger, more diverse, and enriched by new partners who have yet to join our ranks. Between now and then, each of us carries a piece of the work to keep the public realm plural, to measure what truly matters, and to act in ways that make freedom visible. With that horizon in mind, I now invite to the stage the representatives of the Hannah Arendt Center at Bard College, the Hannah Arendt Institute for Totalitarianism Studies in Dresden, the Hannah Arendt Institute in Mechelen, the Hannah Arendt Center in Verona, and our esteemed colleagues from the Egmont Institute to join me in the official signing of the manifesto of the Hannah Arendt Network on Democratic Resilience and Renewal. Please, the maps are in front of you. Or your pens await the signatures that will turn words into this shared commitment. And now, with the manifesto sealed, I invite everyone to the reception that follows. Let us raise a glass to the common world we are building together, one in which plurality is protected, action is encouraged, and beginnings are never exhausted. To today's success, to next year's reunion, and to the courage to begin again and again. Thank you very much.